modules. Let me just say what are those components, and then wherever you feel kind of whichever module, 1 or 2 or 3 or just one, or all 6, you can go through in half an hour. So we will take about half an hour for meditation. Okay? So module number 1 in for compassion meditation, as we refer to as attentional stability, cultivating a stable state of mind, which is characterized by a certain clarity. That we do by simply placing our attention in the present moment, anchored to a certain object that is present. And for us, often, there's maybe our own breathing. As we breathe in and out, just simply attuning to that breath, not thinking, but just resting our attention with the breath. You can find that breath at the nostrils, by way of that little sensation as you breathe in and out. It's just simply, as once you attune to your breath, if you find at the nostril, then just keeping your awareness, your attention in the present, anchored to each incoming and outgoing breath, that with that feeling that unfolds. Or at the abdomen, where you can feel gentle rise and flattening of your belly as you breathe in and out. Just one breath at a time. If we can sustain our attention here and now with the breath. Of course, we need to be aware or alert, almost like having a certain introspective vigilance or awareness, because to stay in the present is not that easy. Our mind is very easily distracted to certain sounds, thoughts, memories, emotions, images, all kinds of things. It will want to be anywhere except in the present. That is how we are kind of used to. But to keep ourselves anchored in the present with the breath will require a little bit of that discipline and effort, if you will, to stay in the present, alertness or awareness to notice when it becomes distracted, but then when we are distracted, to just gently bring the attention back to the breath. Without thinking that this sound from the AC, or we need to shut that down. We can let that be there, but we have what choice we have within our reach is to bring our own attention back to the breath. If there's certain memories, unfold, we have the choice to notice without becoming entangled, letting go of getting entangled, judging, without. Just notice and just come back to the breath. That's module number 1. Very important if we were to regulate our emotions, not to kind of let one thing trigger a whole cascade of emotional reactions. That noticing when they are just impulses, and then finding a way to come back to the breath. So allow those, however kind of agitating or distressing the thoughts, feelings and emotions may be, that if we don't become entangled, come back to the breath, they will subside. Second module is a little bit more than focused attention to rest or settle our mind or attention. It's a little more than that. It's about releasing, if you will, our own kind of conceptual thoughts, feelings, emotions that may be distressing, and so forth, by simply bringing awareness into them without becoming entangled. So that process, as we know, is like the resting the mind in the present moment awareness. Whatever the experience, the thoughts and feelings, emotions may be unfolding now, here in the present, our attempt is simply to be witness, to witness without becoming involved. So letting the mind be like the vast ocean, not picturing it, not imagining it. It's a way of relating to our overall experience. It's like the vast ocean. And those thoughts, feelings, emotions, worries, fears, whatever that surface to our consciousness, awareness, those are like ripples, the waves that unfold on the surface of the ocean. But on our part, if we just simply witness without judging them as good or bad, without trying to suppress or holding on to them, but just observe as if like the third person, noticing it, without identifying with them, but noticing it's a thought, a feeling, a memory, whatever unfolds now, without trying to change or anything, but also not trying to suppress or hold on to them, but just observe. It's witnessing our inner reality in the real time as it unfolds now, as they come and go, just noticing. So like the waves on the surface of the ocean, nobody's suppressing them, nobody can hold on to them, as this dynamic conditions are there, they arise, they subside into the stillness of the ocean. Same way, just resting our awareness in the present moment, awareness, and whatever form they unfold. Sometimes it may be just when a specific thought or emotion that we notice without becoming entangled, as we notice, as it subsides, there is a stillness, there is a gap, there is a space. You just simply rest in that experience of spaciousness, of calmness, stillness, until another thought, worry, fear, emotion comes. Notice. That too will pass. That too will subside if we are not becoming entangled. So that's the third module. Second module. Third, it has to do with self-compassion. And here, this is a little bit more complex. There are many components, but it boils down to simply what we want, each one of us, our most cherished, most precious, just deepest drives, the yearnings, if you will, is to be well, to survive, to flourish. We can say to be happy. Not in the sense of it just kind of lightheadedness, not like that. A sense of, flourishing, fulfillment. And on the one hand, and the other hand, nobody wants to, be distressed, unhappy, kind of dissatisfied, the agitations, anguish, in other words, suffering. Who wants to suffer? We all want to be free from suffering, whether physical, emotional, and so forth. On the other hand, we want to have a deeper, greater sense of flourishing, joy, happiness, fulfillment, right? So, connecting with that deepest of our yearnings is, what is required to go into the self-compassion. Then that having recognized that deepest yearning, then it is about finding peace in ourselves, because it's not that simple. The life is not that simple, that whatever we want, we don't get it. Whatever we don't want, they don't necessarily, are absent in our life. On the contrary, ordinary life as we are, there are plenty of ups and downs. That this is part of our reality, right? So what is important to keep in mind is to, number one, to open our hearts and minds to that reality and embrace, accept it. That when there are certain things that may not go the way we want them to be. Illnesses are not, if I become ill with certain illness, it's not because I'm a bad person. It's just that's what our bodies are, susceptible to illnesses, to aging, to die, to lose loved ones. That's part of our reality. So if we remain blind of that, don't open our hearts and mind to embrace that, accept that reality, we could turn that into something that when things go wrong, we can feel that I'm bad, I'm inadequate. We can end up being harsh on ourselves unnecessarily. Particularly if we have certain responsibilities and so forth, and if our bar is very high, we set, with unrealistic. If we feel that we got to be able to, have to be best in every way, how I look, what I have, what I can do, the best. If we are fixated with that, that is a very unrealistic demand that we can put on ourselves. That is out of tune with the reality, the actuality. We are not superhumans. We are like anybody else. We have our vulnerability, our limitations. That part, I think that is important to kind of, one factor is to, first of all, to embrace our imperfection, limitation. I mean, it's very anti-American, I realize that. But that's something that if we want want to not be unnecessarily harsh and critical and negative about ourselves. We have to have a realistic, we have to be attuned to embrace what the actuality is. And secondly, with that, is to be, embody or embrace that it's not that, we are totally helpless. That's not the case. To find that empowerment in oneself, to make the change, that because there's so much in kind of in life, how we how we live our life, the one that is harmonious with others, that promotes greater well-being, and so forth, or not, or become more and more, anxious and distressing and so forth. So much of this, to recognize that it's a simple, I say simple it with all humility, it's not that simple, but one, recognizing that a shift in our perspective is what all it requires. What is a major part of how comfortable we are, how secure we feel, how comforted, how happy, and so forth. So much has to do with how we see ourselves and others and the events in our life. So bringing this insight in our lives that if our expectations are not in sync with the reality, that's where the distress, the suffering, the problems arise. If what we expect in life if the more we aligned to the reality, that the greater, the freedom there is. So what that means is that for us, for the self-compassion part, is to recognize that incredible, ability that we have, the most crucial, most important tool for our well-being and happiness. That is our own mind. That's something that we can shape. We can. We have very limited abilities to change the external circumstances completely, but we can change how we see. When those things that may be very difficult to handle if we are fixated, that simply cannot happen. But like all the things are like gain and loss, praise, blame, all those things. They have different meaning when we choose to see it from perspective that align with the reality, that is that no matter how high we go, it's not going to be there forever. No matter how much we accumulate, it's by itself, it's not going to be enough, for bring happiness. I mean, it's clear. So this is a complex one, but so we don't have the time to really talk into it much. But the gist of this is, if we could see that, yes, how I want to see myself and others, events unfolding in my life, that it is within my reach, that if I can change a perspective, that changing the perspective is what we all have within our reach to see. That part, I think that for the self-compassion, it's important, and then, that feeling that empowered, had that sense that I want to be, how I want to see the world, how I want to, see gains, losses, and so forth, the reputation and so forth and so on, all these things. That do I want to just stubbornly be obsessed with them, or do I want to open the field of my awareness to recognize that they are like this flower, like anything, they are not fixed, permanent, they come and go. Does that make sense? So, accepting, on the one hand, what difficulty situation there may be, but then with the sense that what is now, it's part of what it's natural, for our. But then we can make a difference by changing our inner attitudes and perspective. That's the part. Then the fourth module in the compassion towards others is impartiality. And that part, again, if we are successful in recognizing our own deep yearnings to be happy and to be free from suffering, and that itself is what gives us the right to pursue for our well-being, happiness, and the freedom from suffering and so forth, then it's really about kind of bringing that awareness, recognition about other people around. Just the person next to you, whether you know the person sitting to your right or left, to your front or behind, in this room, that we don't know each other, many of us we know each other, but those are all superficial kind of aspects of what our lives. What is enduring is that we are all united by that common aspiration that we share. Everyone wants the greater happiness, well-being, and the suffering, freedom from suffering or anguish. I want that. There's no so I want, and I've, it's on that basis, it's absolutely right for me to pursue for happiness, provided that I do it properly. Not just blindly expecting it, but finding the proper path. It's from that perspective, everyone has the right to be happy, to pursue happiness and freedom. Can we embrace that reality? Can we attune to that? Not so far in the abstract sense, just in this room, just us as one family. We are feeling beings, living beings, sentient beings with the feelings and so forth. How different it could be. That our deep feelings, are different. That the deep feelings are, we all want to be happy, to live, to survive, to do well, to avoid suffering. So that, embracing that reality, that not just in the head, and bringing it to the heart, that conviction, and to to sit with that, to kind of make this deeply steeped in our experience, so that becomes our outlook, mental outlook. That becomes our disposition, the lens with which we can relate to others. So, impartiality, not indifference, impartiality in the sense that we are all in the same boat, with all deep down, beyond superficial differences. We are all same, driven by this deep kind of yearnings to be happy, to be free from suffering, and therefore with the same rights to pursue such. So embracing that, kind of respect for others' right to be happy, to person next to you, to front of you, to everyone here. So that part is the fourth module. Sixth module, fifth module is endearment. That for compassion flows so naturally towards those who are very dear to you. A mother would feel for her child, child for the mother, a good friend to other. And that's really the magic kind of the ingredient is endearing feeling. How can we transform each other? Everyone in this room, for us, for each other as endearing beings. How can we do that? It's one thing to see ourselves in others, others in us at that deepest level of aspirations that we share, that identifying with others, that's one way. But to take deeper, that endearing, it's also from our awareness that we are all interdependent, interconnected. In one way or another, that everyone here is contributing to everyone's life, some in direct or indirect ways. That attuning to that reality, kind of embracing that reality, is what leads to the greater sense of gratitude, appreciation, and then endearing feeling towards others. That's number 5. Number 6, the final, the compassion, the empathy, the compassion, unfolding. That compassion is, it arises, compassion unfolds in our heart for others. If we are holding others somewhat kind of endearingly and aware of their suffering, their difficulties. When the mother becomes aware of the child's illness, child's difficulties, she feels for her child's pain and difficulty, and she wants to see the child relieved of the suffering. That's compassion. Compassion is the wish, the desire to see others sort of find the relief from their suffering and to alleviate their suffering. That kind of the more heightened form, it would be, it's the desire to alleviate others' difficulties. Well, however small, that suffering doesn't need to be just completely wiping out all forms of suffering. It's whatever level of suffering that we see. It's the desire to alleviate. Whether in practicality we can relieve or not is another matter. That we can't, even the Jesus could not clear all the suffering. God could not clear all the suffering. Buddha could not clear all the suffering. Suffering is still there. It's not, compassion is not measured by whether you erase the suffering or not. It has to do with the urge to want to help others find that relief from their suffering or to alleviate. But we have to have this humility that we don't necessarily maybe have answers to all the sufferings, but that's okay. So the sixth module in the compassion is about attuning to others' suffering, so that where you can feel the empathy and the deeper sense of empathy and desire to see them relieved of their suffering or to alleviate their suffering. Make sense? So this are the 6 modules. Wherever you find yourself comfortable, 1 or 2 or all of them, if you are familiar with, you can just go to the 4th, 5th modules, wherever you feel comfortable. Let's take a next 25 minutes or so to meditate on this. You may find it kind of helpful to actually to adjust the meditation posture, which can in a way help with stability and the clarity of the mind by sitting with the crossed legs in a comfortable position. If you are sitting in chairs, just putting the feet flat on the floor and bringing your back in upright position, just fully upright position, and just letting it settle in that upright position. Hands just resting, palms resting on your thighs or folded, whichever feels comfortable. Shoulders level, just slightly raised and pulled back initially, and just let them settle also in that position. Head slightly bent, sort of chin slightly tucked inside. Eyes cast downwards, just vacantly cast downwards without focusing on any particular thing in front. But if it is too distracting, you may close your eyes. And lips and teeth in natural position, gently touching. With these physical postures that facilitate the clarity and the stability of the mind, let's at least kind of begin with just 3 rounds of deep and deliberate breathing first to bring the initial kind of relaxation of our body and mind. Taking a deep breath through the nostrils. Just feel that unfolding sensation, if you can, in the nostrils, down to the chest as the lungs expand. And bringing the breath all the way down to the belly as the diaphragm expands or the belly rises. And with the outgoing breath, again, as you slowly, just gradually exhale, bringing the feeling of releasing, letting go of all our fears and worries, our distressing thoughts, feelings and emotions. With the outgoing breath, just gently letting them go. Just repeat this for a couple of more times until you find your body and mind become somewhat relaxed. And then from there on, if you want to begin with just resting the mind, kind of initially, by way of mindfulness of breathing, bringing the breath, kind of attention to the breath at the nostril or at the abdomen, and just one breath at a time, sustaining our attention with the breath, or resting the mind in its natural position, natural state eventually, or with self-compassion or equanimity, endearment, all the way to the compassion. Let's just take a few moments, about 20 minutes, 20-25 minutes, to engage in this meditation. As we conclude our meditation here, let's take a moment to dedicate any insights, any experiences, the positive qualities, the unfolding from this meditation here today. Let's dedicate these to peace, healing and happiness on this earth for all beings. Let's dedicate these merits of the positive energies also for this kind heart of compassion in our hearts to grow further, and for the compassion to unfold on this earth into the hearts of all the sentient beings. Let's take a moment to dedicate the benefits of this our practice to also to those beings, the people who are caught in various conflicts or the disasters, the human-made or the natural disasters, such as wars or the other natural disasters. Let's dedicate the practice for those, for their healing and protection and security and well-being, and for those conflicts and so forth to resolve soon. Just take a moment to dedicate the benefits to also those in your family members or the circle of friends and others that who may be in need of protection and healing. Just if you are aware of them, just share and dedicate the benefit of this practice for them. And for our community here, that those who are aware of the condition of our member and the friend here, Richard Kindesite, who is going through, struggling with the ill kind of term, the serious illness here. Let's dedicate this practice for his peace of mind and well-being, and so also other people who are going through similar conditions. Let's dedicate this practice for their well-being and peace and for healing. And let's dedicate the meditation by setting this intention and resolve, if you will, at the end here, to extend any insights, the experiences that we have cultivated here. Let's set an intention to extend this into our everyday life as we interact with other people in our day-to-day life. Be able to be mindful of our common humanity. They too want to be happy and to be free from suffering. And to be able to maintain this mindfulness, be mindful that how we are interdependent and interconnected, and in direct or indirect ways we are benefited by all the people that we can come in touch with in everyday life, whether they may be our friends, strangers, or even at times our relationship may be difficult. But do not lose the sight that in the large scheme of things, we are all interconnected and interdependent and benefit from each other.